Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Muhammed Chaudhry, the CEO of the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. Muhammad, thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Steve, thank you for having me.
Lots to talk about. Want to get to know the foundation and the work you're doing and the vision you have of the future. Before we do that, though, I'd like to have our viewers get to know you a little bit. So where are you from? Where were you born? What schools did you go to? What were some of the interesting games of chance you played as an elementary school kid?
Great. So I'm a local, raised in San Jose. I went to actually Olinder Elementary School, Castellero Middle School, and San Jose High School.
Wow.
And in the San Jose High School, one of the oldest high schools in the state, great place to go to school, and ran cross country and track there. I had a great time and out in the sun, and now I have bad knees because of it. But it was.
But you got your trophies, so
exactly,
that's all that matters.
Exactly. Long distance running, 2-mile and cross country. So I had a lot of fun. Then after I went to school locally, San Jose State, as a business major, and then worked up in consumer marketing and worked at a couple of tech companies, and then found my true passion, which is supporting public education.
Oh, that's great. What was your major in college?
It was business administration.
So you were going to become a business person, get your MBA, and make it.
Exactly, and I did pursue that. I worked for IBM, a couple of other companies, Clorox of all places, worked in consumer marketing. How do you run a quality business? And those training programs that do that. Did some executive programs over at Stanford, trying to understand that better. But it's really trying to figure out, well, how do you run quality businesses? At the last corporation I was at was called Dazzle Multimedia, where they made video technology equipment, which was then sold. And then around 2002, I found my calling for education.
While you were going to the public schools, did you have any folks who were inspirational to you that made you say, I'm going to make a difference in the world?
Absolutely. There were quite a few folks. Well, one who's still teaching over in Santa Clara Unified is I call him Coach Brad Scythe. Now he's an assistant superintendent and doing a lot of bigger focus, but a great coach who coached me in track, cross country, but really the conversations was where it was at. You're driving to track meets and whatnot, having those conversations. I had a lot of great teachers. I was very fortunate to build relationships with those teachers, particularly when I made mistakes. And I made a lot of those. And those were the inspirational teachers that allowed me to think back and say, how do we support and how do we support them in particular?
Well, did you have any teachers that were just the opposite?
Sure, absolutely. And it was probably me more than them, but as I recall, I did have those teachers that the personal touch, and that didn't provide me that, and I was just another number, and I went through that class, perhaps not learning much, and not getting as much out of it.
Well, I know that there are all kinds of folks out there that are educating our kids, and I think that's one of the goals of the foundation, is to strengthen that, give more skills and all that. But let's talk about the foundation. Where did it come from? What are its goals? Let's have a little background.
Great. So Silicon Valley Education Foundation's mission is to leverage partnerships and resources so that all students realize their full potential. In Silicon Valley, or in Santa Clara County, if you look at, there's 260,000 students in 400 schools, with about 13,500 teachers. So it's like a small state in the country, but yet we have 33 distinct and powerful school districts that are doing great work. The vision of the foundation would be to be that one organization where investors can go to make impact across those districts. Our district superintendents are doing a great job. There are a lot of them that are models for the state and the country in the innovative thing that they're doing within their districts. Our vision was to bring the business community behind that, bring all other investors behind that, and find those best practices and share them across districts. And we have a lot of products that do that, but most importantly, how do we make investing in education easy?
How do you make it easy? What do you guys do to get the community to say, we're doing great things, with your support we can do greater things? It's no secret that the state support for education is always and stable.
Right, absolutely. I think one is to have a common goal. And the goal that we've set out is to make Santa Clara County the #1 county in the state in terms of our students, or the percentage of our students that are prepared to complete something beyond high school and success in college. And that could be career technical education, that could be community colleges, or that could be four-year colleges. One way we're measuring that is how many of our students are taking the courses required to go to college or to go something beyond high school. And there's those specific courses. They're called A to G requirements, as the education folks would call it. Currently, 50% of our students are prepared to do that. And if you look at our Hispanic students, the fastest growing population, it's only 26%. And we're 4th in the state. We want to be #1 and grow that number, both of those numbers, in order to achieve that. So you're saying
26% is the 4th best in the state?
50%. So as a county as a whole, 50% of our students are prepared to have completed those courses, is the 4th best in the state. We need to be #1.
I think that's something we absolutely should do.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure you're working on that.
Yes, yes.
How do you work with all the districts, having 33 districts, 33 school boards, 33 superintendents? I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity in that.
There is, and we found a lot of opportunity, and it's providing solutions. Different districts have different needs and different strategies to get there, and we need to be cognizant of that. We need to be respectful of that. It's not always the same line that you need to follow to get to the certain result. And there's research on all those things, and everyone's doing great things. What we tend to find is, where are the opportunities in collaboration? I'll give you a good example. In this goal of being #1, one of the biggest predictors of completion of college is not race, it's not socioeconomics. It's if you take Algebra 2 and pass or not in high school. Blew my mind when I first heard about this research. So we backed up from that as, how about Algebra 1 in the 8th grade? So algebra seems like it's a common thread. Currently, 37% of our students in Santa Clara County take and pass algebra in the 8th grade. We said that's not acceptable for Silicon Valley. We want to grow that number. So we work with districts who agreed with that. Currently, we have 8 school districts in Santa Clara County that have agreed to that, and we're supporting with a program called Stepping Up to Algebra, where we take those kids who are almost ready to take algebra in the 8th grade, but not quite. Let's give them a booster shot in the summer to get them there and get them to take algebra in the 8th grade, not only take it, but pass it at a high level. And we had over 500 kids do that this past summer. Hopefully next year we'll grow that number. And what we've seen is the districts come together, common curriculum, common thing, common goal. But what we've also seen is the investors say, I get it, I know why it's important, and I will invest in it. And our corporations across the valley, big and small, have invested in this. It's a great example of districts coming together, but also investors coming together to support education.
That is intriguing that algebra would be so important. Why is that? What is the background or the science there?
I believe that there's a lot of logic and reasoning that you learn in algebra that applies to many other places. What we've noticed in studies is our industry wants people who understand math and science. When you talk to students, it's so hard, and it's something that they're not interested in.
Yeah.
So how do you build interest in that? How do you get kids involved in that? And if they can get through that and understand that and be interested in it, I think other things are root to that. So to understand science, you have to understand math. To understand many other things, the core is math. So if we can pick one thing, you know, it's multiple measures, there's a lot of things, but if you wanted to just pick one, and where can you pinpoint? It's not you know, just the end all and be all, but it is a strong indicator that if you understand math, you'll be able to be successful in many other courses as well.
Well, and I think if people know that and know some of the background, that, for instance, that it does teach logic and fresh approaches to things, that could motivate people in themselves, including the parents of the kids that are going, well, I didn't do well in math, and I know that you probably won't either.
Right.
Get into that negative self-fulfilling prediction.
Absolutely, and you know, Steve, what we've noticed is even some teachers didn't do well in math, and we have a shortage of math teachers. So how do we train those teachers as well? So we're partnering with great organizations in the Valley, such as the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, to train some of our middle school math teachers as well, to get them ready to teach math in a more dynamic way, and teach them about math more so they get it and they intrinsically understand it even more so than they do now, in order to achieve those goals as well. I think that this is a common thing where our parents, our teachers, and our students, it's going to take a community to understand this.
I think there's frustration with how some parents perceive school now, that the teachers are directed to get the kids to pass tests, and the motivation seems to be not apparent, that, you know, we really need to get in there and talk content and
Absolutely.
move people forward.
Absolutely. The challenge is, if you look at it from a school-based challenge, in the past, parents took care of teaching kids how to do things like tie their shoes. Other people took care of the moral upbringing. Now, a lot of that has shifted to the school. We expect the school to do almost everything. We expect the school to take care of your dental needs. We expect the school to take care of many other needs beyond just the core concept of education. And we don't think they're funded at the right level to be able to do that all those things. So I think that the core, if you look at all those other needs, but the core is how can you teach education, kind of like what we're talking about our teachers or my teachers, the dynamic ones where they provided the content in a more relevant way and provided a context where you saw why I'm learning this and how it's important to me and when will I use this again. One of the biggest hurdles is not what I'm doing, it's why I'm doing it. And the more the teachers can do that, and we have a tool called Lessonopoly.org, where online we have teachers share their lesson plans in a more dynamic way, content and context, in order for students to understand it, share videos, and provide all the relevant things to make it exciting.
Now, how does that work? How do you show videos, and who gets to see them? Is that something for other teachers, for parents? Or?
So this tool is for teachers. How do you disseminate information for teachers? I'll give you an example. There's organizations out there that care about various things like domestic violence. How do you teach kids about domestic violence at an earlier age? What you can do with this tool is to share that content, connect it to California state standards, and then teachers would understand, okay, if I needed to talk about this subject, here are the steps I would take to do it. Make it very simple for them, because a part of it is getting over that hurdle. And someone talking on a video, not only to the students that they can play the video, but to the teachers saying, okay, here's what you would do, here's why I did this, here's what worked for me. It's kind of a way to widely disseminate something really fast versus teaching one teacher at a time, which would be costly and timely. Why not in Silicon Valley use technology to leverage technology to achieve results?
That sounds like a brilliant idea. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about Lessonopoly Plus. We'll be right back.
I'm Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, and I'm really pleased to say a few words to you today. One of the most often asked questions of me is, how did you get involved in this? It was 1960, I was a high school student, had to be 21 to vote, but you could organize. And so 783 students later, and many, many, many weeks of organizing, election night, I saw John F. Kennedy become President of the United States. Now, what's the relevancy today? You can do the same thing. Based on your passions, bring them to us, to the Democratic Party. If you care about the environment and preserving it, come to us, because we care about that. If you want quality education for all children, that's what we care about. If you want a health care system that delivers for everyone, come to us. Call area code 408-445-9500. You have a place for us, and together we can remake America into the kind of place that every citizen is proud of and deserving of.
Welcome back to Democratic Television. We're having a very interesting discussion about the Silicon Valley Education Foundation and all the great things that you guys are doing and going to be doing. Before we do that, I know your wife, Rabia, is also very active in the community. How long you guys been together, and are you going to become the power couple in the county in 4 years?
She's certainly much more powerful than I am. Rabia, we've been married for 8 years, and she currently is the chief of staff of Supervisor Dave Cortese, and purely and truly enjoys the work that she's doing there, and it's very inspirational for me. It's working for those that have less of a voice in our community, and increasing that voice, and she absolutely loves what she does, and I'm very supportive of what she does and will continue to be.
Of course. I've had the pleasure of working with her on some projects, and she's a dynamo.
Great.
So good stuff, real good stuff. And so back to the work of the foundation in terms of getting out into the community, engaging, say, the private sector. I assume, though, you're about engaging larger communities.
Absolutely. I think that the entire community that cares about education knows that education is our greatest opportunity and is our greatest leverage point for our next generations, not just the immediate generation, not only for the workforce, but as a community and a more educated community. There's a lot of ancillary benefits of that. In that, towards that end, what we ask is everyone to be engaged in education. Visit our website, get involved with us. We do a lot of education forums where we provide thought leadership on what are the challenges in education. Charter schools, what's the good, the bad, the ugly, what's important about them, what's not important about them, but to have a dynamic conversation and provide a platform for that conversation, we think is incredibly important to have an informed community that cares and understands the challenges in education.
Who is your audience then? It sounds like it's very broad.
Absolutely. I think it's going, with 260,000 students in school, and the parents are a key constituency. I think the business community is a key constituency because they're going to employ these 260,000 students. And what do they need? And they've told us what they need. They need students that are workforce ready. They're able to think dynamically. They're able to work in undefined environments and be successful at that. So how do we prepare the pipeline of that workforce? And then as well as our education leaders, what do they need? We know money is not the only thing, but we know it matters. And we know that we all need to invest more in education. We figured that out. And I know everyone pays their taxes, and that's important. They should continue to pay their taxes. But to have the best education system in the world, we're going to require a little extra.
Well, I think there's also a disparity in what different school districts, even within the county, get. Some districts are limited, and others seem to be getting much higher per student rates from the state.
Steve, that's a great question, because the data that we looked at, the average in the county per student's spending that we make with our tax dollars is $8,600. But when we looked at the disparity just within the Santa Clara County, there's some school districts that spend up to $12,000 a student, and there's others that spend under $7,000.
Wow.
So the average doesn't really tell the story. And that could be a difference of about $50 million in the budgets of two same-size school districts. And imagine what you can do with that. And that's where it further accentuates the need, and it further defines what we can do with money. And I'm not saying money is the only solution. There's great studies done by folks at Stanford and other places across the state called Getting Down to Facts. They basically said, yes, more money is needed. If you compare us to New Jersey, we're spending half of what New Jersey and Connecticut is spending. So we need to increase our spending. But there's also reform needed, and we should look at those things as well. And as the Silicon Valley Education Foundation, we'll be looking at both of those equations and see how we can be helpful on both sides of that.
Do you have education leaders coming to you, or do you have educational leaders on your board that are saying, I'd like us to go in this direction, I'd like us to go in that direction, here's some legislation we need to sponsor? How do you guys work in that sense?
Absolutely, and our biggest and most important interest is the students. What will help student achievement? What will move the numbers? Our top priorities in functional education areas is math and science, or otherwise known as science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. And then pre-K, so even before they get to the school system, that 0 to 5 age is critically important. And then English and language arts. In those three areas, how do we do that? And what we've noticed is we can do programs, but what's even more important is how do we leverage partnerships and technology. There's a lot of great entities in Santa Clara County and around the country and around the state that support education. How do we leverage them, and how do we partner with them? And it's a lot easier said than done. How do you come together, take money off the table, and really connect programs? And we've seen the benefits of that, where you don't have to exchange any money, but you can link programs and then make the sum of the parts better than individually. And that's where partnerships come in. The other area I think that's important is technology. being in Silicon Valley, we need to figure out how do we leverage technology to support education. Once we figure out what we need to move, I think we can leverage some of the corporations in the Valley to achieve that. And once you figure that out, there'll certainly be legislation locally at the school board level, county level, at the state level, at the federal level that can help enhance and support achieving student outcomes. One example right now, conversation that's going on is around race to the top. The national government, Obama, has put aside some money to support some legislation, and there's some pitfalls there, and there's some opportunity there. Trying to make sense of all that is what hopefully we can provide some thought leadership and provide some clarity on what the issues are.
So are you sort of the hub, the go-to organization to try to, link organizations together? I know there's an organization called RAFT. I assume you're partners with them. They want to get business to donate leftover supplies, things that teachers can take off the shelf, bring into their classroom, and do it at no real great expense.
Absolutely, a great example. RAFT is a great example, and we really respect the organization and what the creativity and the innovation that's happening there. One example where we can be helpful to RAFT is we have teacher innovation grants for teachers. How can they innovate inside the classroom? There's a $500 grants. Now, can our teachers use that money at RAFT to produce results? Is one simple way. Other thing is, how do we partner with RAFT to get more of their materials out in the community, have more teachers using it, and how do we have a long-term relationship? RAFT is a great partner of Silicon Valley Education Foundation. There's many other partners that are out there that you may seem unlikely partners, but when you really get into it, you see the differences coming together can achieve great things.
Well, that's what's neat. Some of them may be niche kinds of organizations, but when you put them all together, you really have more support for your goal, which is to help students do well.
Absolutely.
Do better, especially in math.
Absolutely.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
How big is your board, and is your board an active board? Do you have a lot of input from your different folks?
Absolutely. We have a phenomenal board. We have a lot of technology leaders, former CEOs, current CEOs, venture capitalists, big business titans, if you will, that know that their greatest leverage was education, and they're coming back, and these people have global purview and view with making sure that the Silicon Valley has a strong education system, and they are very active not only in investing their money, but also their time, their energy, their strategy, and their network to support education. Then we have those educators, folks like Michael Kirst out of Stanford, great mind who's written on this for a lifetime, who has a lot of information, and who said, again, a global thinker who can look in the backyard and say, I want to make an impact, and here's how we can do it. So like Mike Kirst, like Linda Darling-Hammond, great education academic leaders that can help. Also ground level superintendents that are making an impact, teachers that are making an impact sit on our board. Most importantly, parents. At the end of the day, we've got to work with parents to provide solutions that help them, not tell them that they're doing something, whatever they're doing is wrong.
Yeah. You aren't a teacher. Is that been a hindrance or maybe a help to you as you go forward and work on all this?
It's provided a lot of perspective. It makes me look at research. It makes me look at the process. And we have a former superintendent on our staff. We have a few teachers on our staff who we really go to. But also they're not everyone's voice. I think the most important thing is getting community input into our process. As we did our strategic planning process, we invited a lot of teachers, educators, superintendents into a room and say, is this what we should be doing? Can we agree to this goal for the Valley? And then how would we achieve it? And can you help? So it's a lot of community input. My job is to make sure that we connect all these pieces in order to have a better outcome for our students.
It sounds like you're doing really important stuff, and you are. Do you have sister organizations outside Santa Clara County, throughout California, anywhere, or anywhere else in the country?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of great organizations that want to make an impact in education, whether it be advocacy in Sacramento, such as TechNet, EdTrust, and those types of organizations that we work closely with, or it be programmatic organizations that are statewide, nationwide that we work with, or other education foundations. There's a lot of education foundations across the state and across the country. core purpose, how do you help student achievement, how do you help from the outside perspective to gain results in education.
One thing that would be helpful, people may want to call to volunteer to learn more about you. Do you have a phone number for people to call and a website for them to go to?
Absolutely, and we look for input and we look for people to get involved in education. Our phone number is 408-790-9400, and our website is svefoundation.org or inspireastudent.org.
And what kinds of things would you like people to call up and say, I'd like to help you with? Do you have a priority list?
Absolutely. We'd love people to roll up their sleeves and help in core areas, volunteer inside the classroom. We'd love for them to financially support education if they can't do that, because every dollar counts and every dollar will be spent in a very transparent and a meaningful way across the county to make sure that we achieve those results.
You're a 501c3, so there's a little tax credit aspect to
Absolutely.
donating to you. I don't mean to throw you a softball or anything.
No, absolutely, we
Tell us
are.
about
We are, and then any donation is tax deductible. But more importantly, they will see the results of that commitment. And a lot of employers match those donations. So, but it's really getting folks to say, $5 a month. If I can do just $5 a month to support public education and impact in a significant way future generations, is that worth it? And I hope it is, and I hope people get involved in doing that.
Oh, that's a great way to do it. Give a little over a long period of time, make a difference. Obviously something, whether you have kids in the school or they're out and out in the community already. So
absolutely.
That sounds great. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, Muhammad. I've learned a lot, and I hope our viewers have too.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org. Help make a difference, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.